is the first time we ever tried to do two panels, but the thing is, these are two stories that link together, and it's really important for us to think about global travel, but then also on the holistic, from the holistic standpoint of the individuals, the residents, what it means in the communities. Before we do that, I do want to mention again that we will be doing a workshop in a couple of weeks where we'll be exploring how to improve your online experiences. What we've been hearing across the board is that without a doubt, your websites need to be more comprehensive, they need to be more empathetic and have the appropriate information. So we'll be tackling that. So on this point, with this next panel, we want to tackle this concept of what is this hospitality in this new normal. We're used to a very different type of hospitality industry. That's something that, for me personally, and many of the people on this call today, I really think will be challenging to imagine, well, what does it mean to go to a restaurant? What does it mean to go to an event anymore? It's all going to change a little bit, and we need to get comfortable in that and trust it. But we also want to talk about how we can make the tourism and hospitality industry more resilient. It's been tragic, the amount of job loss, the amount of businesses that have been put to risk. And part of why we're doing this event today is to really hear from the front lines, to hear how that's been and what we can do to not only pull ourselves out of this, but also make us stronger as a community. Joining us today, we have three amazing panelists. They are from different parts of the industry to give us a wide lens. But before that, I really want to begin and say a huge thank you to the many people in the hospitality industry who make the cities we live in vibrant and unforgettable. They're putting themselves at risk. They love their industry so much that they just can't imagine doing anything else. And the same thing to the owners who choose to do many other things aside from this. So I'm very proud and excited that you're fighting for the things you're passionate about. On our panel today, we have Karri Schuermans, who is the co-owner of Chambar, co-founder of Food Coalition, co-founder of Dirty Apron Cooking School, also the co-founder of Medina previously. She's a successful entrepreneur driven by impact results. Her broad experience includes forestry, marketing, branding, publishing, municipal government, strategic operation planning, and international film media management for the Sydney 2000 Olympics. Karri's deep interest in the convergence of sustainability, ethics, and economics has brought her to lead the Innovation Capital Initiative. Next, we have Nate Sabine, who's the Director of Business Development at Blueprint. He oversees one of the largest hospitality and live event brands in Canada. Blueprint owns bars and nightclubs. They also produce more than 250 live events annually, including some of the largest indoor festivals in Canada. Over his 19 years in the industry, he's worked pretty much every job there is. Then we have Kate Dinwall, who's a freelance food and spirits writer. She is a food and beverage business contributor for Forbes.com, and her work can be found in Wine Enthusiast, Liquor.com, Eater, Toronto Life, Maxim Magazine, Vine Pair, Condé Nast, Foodism, Culture Trip, Canada's 100 Best Restaurants, The Bourbon Review, and a number of other publications, both in print, online and in print. And as a reminder, we will be using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So please feel free to add your questions in there and we'll come to them at the end. Okay, I just want to double check that all our panelists are here and that we can hear them fine. Is everyone good?
I'm good if you are.
Yeah,
all good. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to start with something special, which is obviously here in Vancouver, restaurants just recently started reopening. Most of them opened over the last week, maybe 10 days or so, depending on how aggressive they were. For businesses, employees, and customers, there's been a confusion mixed with anticipation about what the experience was going to be like. Karri's spectacular restaurant, Chambar, released a video that really set the tone for what customers should expect. I want to share this video, and I hope that we can hear the audio, because I thought it was a spectacular take on what's necessary. So again, that was a really fascinating video because Chambar's really been ahead of the curve in many ways in terms of how you've been communicating online. But there's one quote that I really want to focus on here. It's, what is a safe place? It is a safe place where we trust each other and a place where we are honest. So Karri, now that we're 1 week into the reopening, what do you think the hospitality industry needs to do to win back the customers and staff that they lost?
I mean, making people feel safe is obviously the prime one. And the reason we put out that video was because we wanted people to have a visceral experience of what it would be like to come in the weirdness of all the extra stuff, the distance and the masks or face shields, whichever the staff used to wear, so that when they came, they'd already had that experience. And also to let people know that we wanted people to understand that it is only if they feel safe, and that's their responsibility, because a lot of what's been happening and the whole reason we have this crisis is basically because people won't take responsibility for themselves and their choices and how their actions affect other people. And if they did, we wouldn't have this shutdown. So how do we shift that to put the responsibility on the customer coming in? So when people make a reservation, they sign a good human pledge. I mean, we did the verbiage so that it wasn't formal. There was really 3 components. One was to really state our values, because we wanted people not to be coming in and being nasty to the staff or looking for things that were wrong. And one was to make the staff feel safe, to let them know that we were doing everything to protect them, because if they're not there, then we don't exist. But also for the customers, that if they don't take responsibility to say, I haven't been exposed, and sign a health declaration, and to basically release us of liability, because there's no precedent. So we don't even know if that could be an issue, because we've certainly been attacked before for the most crazy things legally, which is people just going after you like an opportunistic. We just wanted to put that as like, make it clear, not here. And also from a more human perspective of, we really thought in this time, like, do restaurants, should they even exist? Like, are we even relevant now? And really looking at the people that we trust are the people that we sit around a table and share food with. Mm-hmm. Like, who do we actually trust in this day and age, in this moment in time? Who do we trust? Is there a stranger that you would trust to come sit less than 6 feet away at your table? Like, who? Like, there's people that you share values with. And it just really made it obvious, like, who do we trust? Are there many leaders that we would trust to sit at our table with us? Not really. Like the Dalai Lama, he's probably not going to show up anytime soon. Like, who do we actually trust? And those are the people that we're going to be sharing tables with. And just how do we take the visceral anxiety that people have, justified or not? Because in BC, the risk is so low. Like, everything is a reaction to the fear, and we're reacting to the reaction rather than the data. And if we look at the data, our risk is actually so low, but there is a risk. So if you know that you're coming into a restaurant and that everyone else has also shared, like, given their details, because we're going to take responsibility to inform them if anybody there's a potential exposure. But also, if you know that everyone else signed this pledge, then you can look around the room and say, okay, at least I have shared values and everybody here gets it, strangers or not. And it gets rid of that, like, stranger danger feeling of other people. And just to be like, hey, we all have a different risk tolerance. And just because someone chooses not to wear a mask, that's their choice. And if you don't feel comfortable, then you should wear a mask. So it just, like, puts the accountability and responsibility on the customers coming in, because we can't exist without them, but we could also not exist because of them.
Yeah.
So we had to define where the responsibility was for people. If you want restaurants, then you need to take responsibility for yourselves to be really honest with us about whether you've been exposed or not.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's one of the things coming out of this crisis is you're more than service workers now. This industry has a face, it has a place, it creates something much more than the food itself. And we saw that happen once we have takeout food, that the soul is taken out of it in many ways.
Yeah.
So Thinking about it from the event side, Nate, I'm sure you've been watching the nightlife sector everywhere. And Kate, you've been hearing from top restaurants and bars around the world. Based on how other cities have been handling reopening, what are some lessons on how to win back the trust of your customers and also how to lose their trust?
Well, I think the number one thing that we can do and what we're looking at as organizers are, again, where trust is concerned, is not opening up too quickly, not jumping the gun, doing everything, not only, sort of reading the climate of things, but actually being safe and not pushing the envelope too much. And Bonnie Henry's word comes from on high right now. So we're not even looking that directly right now at, say, the larger events, because we know that's so far away, and that's the way that we all want it, and we understand that. In talking about live music venues and nightclubs, however, we are looking at essentially repurposing those spaces for now in the short term to do things like art shows, seminars, rehearsal spaces, that sort of thing, almost anything creative where we can police it properly and still follow all the safety, sanitation, and health guidelines that have come down. And I think that, again, it goes back to trust. We have to build that trust. I was on a roundtable with the mayor a week or two ago, and he was saying that the data coming through is that women are the least likely to visit a place, a live music venue or a nightclub of all the demographics that they surveyed, which makes perfect sense to me. And we have to start there. We have to show what we're going to do in terms of there's so many things that we've always had to do in terms of making people safe, especially when you talk about a festival. So we always have on-site medical and ambulances and all of the other things that we need. We have to now expand that. What that exactly looks like, I don't know. We're on, like you said, we're watching worldwide what happens. We are talking to people in Europe that run nightclubs and festivals because they're so much further ahead of it. Right now, so much of it is fundraising to keep places open and keep the culture alive. And they're now moving into opening venues safely. What does that look like? Right now, it doesn't look a whole lot different than what we're doing in restaurants and bars, but that will expand out as needed.
Yeah. And Kate, what have you been saying?
I definitely think one of the key points here is to make customers feel safe. So kind of reiterating what Karri was saying, like they aren't at risk dining with you. The onus is also on customers not to come in if you do have a fever, if you've been in contact with a huge amount of people. But from a restaurant and bar perspective, you want people to feel very safe and comfortable when they walk in. Like, this can be tactical if you're following guidelines, but also emotionally making guests feel warm. Like, the mask's a bit quirky, but we're all in this together and it's a very safe environment. Mm-hmm. This is also, goes without saying, having an incredibly robust sanitation and safety system in place that will keep all your staff and your guests safe and feeling safe. But at the end of the day, we love dining out because of the spirit of conviviality. And we have to remember we're kind of all in this together and we want our guests to feel comfortable. And it'll depend on guest to guest. You'll have guests dying to sit down and order a pint, but you'll have guests who are really wary about entering a restaurant. So it's about kind of approaching both those different guests and making them feel comfortable. But we're also going to see our entire dining experience change. We're going to see people wearing face masks and full visors, which is a bit unsettling. And every different touch point is going to change, like how a guest enters a restaurant, how we touch candles, menus, every little thing that a customer touches and every point of interaction is going to change, which is unsettling, but we're going to have to get used to it. And that's going to be what we're going to see going forward.
Yeah, I think unsettling is a good word for it at first, but it's been really surprising to me, or maybe not so much because humans are quite adaptable, but how quickly those things have become normal. Mm-hmm. You know, we saw it in Vancouver where everybody, the first couple of weeks of the shutdown, it was shut down and everybody played by the rules. And that's why we were able to contain it so much. And I think that, people have we only opened our places about 9 days ago. And we, at 50% capacity, and I hope this isn't oversharing and I don't get in trouble from from ownership, but at 50% capacity, most of our bars are operating at 60 to 75% of what they would normally do. So what we've seen, and we have a different clientele by and large than Karri has at Chambar. I love Chambar. I can't wait to get back there. I take so many of my meetings there. But the people want to get out, and people by and large are feeling safe. But oh, I lost my train of thought. Anyway. But yes, people are getting used to the new normal a lot quicker than I think we anticipated.
So to that point, when I think of this industry, all my best memories are intimate moments, crowded around a table or at a massive cultural event. Like, do you see some opportunities for restaurants, bars, events to reinvent themselves during this potentially really long year or two that we got ahead?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really do. I think that what we have to do is provide a better experience. And I don't mean like stepping outside of the safety and health around COVID, but just in general, because, when we start a music festival, we always start at super small and very specific genre wise and getting a certain crowd, and we build it from there. But when we start looking at the opportunities and what this has forced us to do is become more innovative with our own spaces, with our thinking around our own spaces, and building that out into our festivals as well. So, adding more of a culinary aspect to it, adding more experiential, and I hate that word, but experiential activations and partnerships with other companies that could add value. And I think that, the ideas are going to be, going to be a waterfall, because it's not, if we're innovating, we know that everyone else is too.
And you've seen that play out over the span of the pandemic as well. Like, I've seen wine bars turn into bottle shops, and they're selling really cool wholesale cases. I've seen people start doing family style meals. You're seeing restaurateurs, bar owners get incredibly creative with the times. And we're seeing that as you see countries start reopening around the world. Like, there's a bar in Vienna with the mannequins, which is, again, unsettling. And I don't really see how that adds to the bottom line. But you're seeing people start to rethink restaurant spaces and how we interact with them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, as far as the innovation, it's how do we continue to move volume of food without the ability to have people in seats. So whether that's doing like takeout for our style of restaurant it's been pretty dismal, but we did, like, our way of innovating through this was by forming a coalition with restaurants that were also committed to using local food, because as this hit, what we saw was our local food supply chains collapsing. And if we didn't keep those alive, then when we opened, they wouldn't be there. And then we're having to, order food that's been bumping around in a box all the way from Mexico. And having our local food security is such what's being brought to light because of that, is like, what if the border closed to food? Then we'd be really screwed. So we were able to transition and access our customer database to raise funding and provide food mostly for seniors that were in place, that were living in like single room occupancies that would normally access soup kitchens. And so we fed more than 20,000 people with a group of restaurants, which was amazing, because it was our customers that wanted to see us survive, but people that really understood the importance of regional agriculture and that we were delivering to a real need. And so how do we continue that in legacy is that now we're realizing there's a lot of people that, just like all of us here, you and I, that all of a sudden they're in a financial crisis and they've never accessed charity before. And so the pride issue that they have around having to go to a food bank is really hard for people. So how can we continue to do these $10 meals that people can come to the restaurant and pick up as if they're getting takeout? And how can we distribute those to people in a way that people can have their pride? Yeah. So it's like, what innovates out of that is we can continue to support the need within our local community. And the need where the need is may move, but we can ongoing provide for that.
So something I'm hearing from all of you is that this is a moment for communities to recognize the place that you sit in in the relationships around them. Like, you're more than a business in many ways. You know, Nate was talking about that their spaces are where culture happens. You mentioned that your restaurant not only is the food it serves, it's the businesses that are on the front end and the back end of that. And that's really fascinating to really think differently about the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's about any businesses that you're a cultural or contribution to the community that you live in. And I think one thing, especially in North America, that we've never really had to face like they did in Europe from a culinary perspective is that our greatest culinary zones of the world came out of scarcity. Like what we consider to be our gourmet was what chefs made delicious in times of scarcity. And so how do we represent our region and make us unique, which ties to the tourism? Like, what is it? Like, if everybody's bringing food in from all over, we're not getting this sense of like, what is really unique and amazing in our region that provides a uniqueness and a sense of place from a culinary perspective that people come to appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we haven't committed enough to that. So
looking ahead, obviously right now we're entering summer. This is a nice time of year. You know, people are going to take advantage of patios. There's all the cities are exploring ways of expanding the patio space and have as much public space as possible used up for this. Being outside makes a lot of sense, and it makes people feel safer. I'm wondering, what do you think will need to get figured out to be able to make anyone feel safe inside once we do hit those rainy and cold months?
From our perspective, from the restaurant industry, what's harder is getting the guests to keep their distance, because once people come in, they just forget. Mm-hmm. They move like normal. They want to hug somebody on the other side of the room that they know that they haven't seen. And you're like, well, that's your choice. Like, that's humans. We want to connect with people. And our greatest concern is that we get shut down again. Because if we get shut down, we're done. Like, we're absolutely done. And what does that mean to the economy? So we're like, okay, let's help open slow. The slower we open, that we flatten the curve so much here that it's going to be a really long spread out recovery. So it's really about communicating with, ensuring that as long as we have to keep the distance, we also have to keep the subsidies in place, or we can't survive. Because when we model it out, our concern is January to April next year, when the subsidies don't exist and we have to drop down in our sales. That's really where the high risk is. And will there be access? We can't take on more debt. So it's the logistics around that.
Are all three of you finding a significant preference to being on patios right now? Is that what most people are asking for?
Yes and no. So, you know, we'll see, because the patio expansion was just announced, and we're actively working with the city for being able to extend patios right up to the curbside, and then having a pedestrian laneway in what are currently used as parking spaces, that sort of thing. And I think that will naturally be attractive to everybody, but that also, I believe, is going to only happen until October. So just sort of echoing what Karri said, it's really about what does the summer look like for us as a province, as a city, in terms of the cases? Does the curve stay flattened? Is everybody sort of behaving? Because again, as Karri said, we're seeing it too, where people are like, oh, I see my homie over there. You just want to go say hello. And all of a sudden people are mixing and they shouldn't be. So I think that is going to really be the tail of the tape in terms of people's sense of safety and security going into the fall and the winter. And again, Karri, that's our biggest fear too, is that we get shut down again, because as big and diverse as Blueprint is, because we do artist management, we own liquor stores, thank God, that have gotten us through this. But we have 4 nightclubs that are sitting closed right now that we don't see being able to open with any real revenue generating model until there's a vaccine. I mean, that's the insurance alone on live music venues and nightclubs is ridiculous. It like, a lot of operators can't even get it proper insurance. Like, that's how expensive it is. So things like that, that's our number one fear too, is that things balloon up again, we have to close, and then, you know, it's Armageddon.
Yeah. Kate, what have you been seeing around the world in like warmer places, colder places? Are people avoiding the indoors as much as possible?
I'm based in Toronto, and we're definitely seeing people start flocking to the outside. They're not as concerned. Well, the fear surrounding the virus is dying down a bit. So you're starting to see people go to parks. What we are seeing in kind of Toronto, New York, and several other cities across North America is loosened liquor licenses. So New York's offering or to-go cocktails, so people can kind of support a bar as well as drink outside now. So I'm curious, after all this is over, are these loosened restrictions going to stay? So that's one way some areas are trying. Hopefully, we're seeing Toronto is offering a lot of different bottle shop options, which is the first time we've really loosened those liquor laws in ages. So we're seeing changes in these laws as people are going outside and are trying to keep the distance without bars.
I'm curious, and sort of jump in with a question for you, Kate and Karri. With Vancouver going into allowing drinking on beaches and drinking in public and loosening up, as you said, do you feel that that's a threat to a restaurant, bar, or club? If people can just go to the liquor store and go to the beach and drink all day, do you guys see that as impacting the bottom line? Because we're a little concerned about it.
I would say maybe, but I'm much more on the realm of if you do the right thing to make a cool, vibrant city, then that's good for everybody. And if it means, like, Vancouver is known as having a lot of really stupid rules that were made for people that just like are idiots, essentially. And so we have all these stupid rules that treat people like children. It's like, come on, like, why can't you have a bottle of wine at the beach or bring cocktails? Like, just don't, be pricks to the people next to you. This moderation kind of mentality would be nice. So to see some of these almost like social engineering bylaws be lifted, it's like about time. Like, it's so ridiculous in Vancouver how we have all these like really just stupid rules. So crazy. I think yes, we need that for our people. When they come from Europe are like, what do you mean you can't like have a like what? Like, people are having like a nice little bottle of port and some cheese in the evening watching the sunset, and somebody comes and rips it away and it's like, you're not allowed to do that. Like, we don't need that anymore. Like,
no, I agree. We're adults.
Like the relaxing of all of that is, hopefully we don't blow it. But it's time. This is an opportunity to flesh all of that out. It's an old regime of municipal government we just need to just ditch it all. So I think it's great for people to be able to get out. I mean, if I don't have the ability to serve to-go cocktails. If I did, I would do it in a second. Like, here's your picnic basket. Here's some beautiful cocktails. It's all chilled. You can pick it up with your to-go food and take it and like go for it at the beach. Like, why not?
Yeah.
So because that would create another revenue stream for us, and people like convenience. And if they could pull up and get some cocktails for all their friends, and it's all done for them with fresh, like, local, beautiful mint or whatever, like, we can do that. And that gives so much pleasure to our staff to be creative and do those types of things, that I welcome it. I don't see stuff like that as competition.
Mm-hmm. Very fair.
So I want to go into a couple of final questions here. And I know a lot of people that are attending or have struggling businesses. They're impacted directly by this. They're struggling to kind of get by the same way we've been hearing across the board. So I just want to go through a couple of quick ones for them. I'm just wondering, which part of the customer experience do you think will be most important to focus on to speed up the recovery? We heard a lot about safety and trust. Is there anything else that will help them bounce back faster?
I mean, I would say above and beyond anything is just the human connection. Like, if you can, restaurants are about hosting people, and you come to a restaurant because you want to be looked after, and you're sick of cooking at home and you want to come and you don't want to have to worry about anything. So I would say above and beyond anything is really good service.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, as well as that, having a strong online and social media presence. I know that sounds quite kind of 2020 of me, but what I've noticed picking up takeout across the past few months is some people just don't have simple things like their menu or their hours posted online. So having hours posted in clear locations, having full menus available, detailing takeout, pickup, and eventually in-person dining policies, and having that information readily available so customers don't have to find it. It's just an ease for customers.
Yeah. Nate, you got any thoughts? Like, I mean, no one knows what nightclubs are going to be after this. Like, what is it that you think you need to communicate to kind of get people nodding their heads like, I need to do this?
I think adding to what Karri and Kate both said is adding value, however you can do that. So is it, you know, giving everyone a small bottle of hand sanitizer when they come in? Is it decreasing prices on certain things? Is it, you know, adding more games to a bar or something like this? Like, whatever it is, I believe that it's adding value as well as what Karri and Kate touched on.
Okay. Next one here, and let's keep it quick just because I know everyone's running a little late here. We've seen more and more businesses offering at-home experiences where you see ready-to-cook kits with pairings and sometimes entertainment. Chambar did a couple of these. A lot of businesses have been doing these all over the world. Do you think that trend is going to keep growing?
I'm going to say yes.
Absolutely.
Now that people have had it, they're like, oh, that's not something I want to lose.
Yeah.
Especially considering we're not, well, Toronto is definitely not, but many places are nowhere near reopening. So having these really lovely experiences is excellent. And as well, when we do reopen, there's going to be immunocompromised people who can't really dine out as quickly as others can. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Tyson, who you partnered with, Karri, on the Candlelight Club, and you know, he really thinks that this is going to be the return of like the home dinner party where it becomes a bit of a show. Do you think that kind of suits the tone, both in terms of public health and the economics of right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in personally experiencing it, instead of people, like it's somebody's birthday, and instead of 20 people going out to a restaurant because you can't seat more than 6 right now, people are having dinner parties at kind of social distancing in their backyard and bringing in a caterer. So I think there'll be a resurgence of catering, private chefs, that type of thing for the people that like economically and can afford it. But also just from, I think people have been isolated beyond common sense because that's what we've been told to do. And what people miss is being with their friends. And if that means now that people have been hit very differently financially, is that maybe people can't afford to go out and eat. And so instead of eating out once a week, maybe it's once a month.
Yeah.
And that there's
sounds like the old days, doesn't it?
The dinner party, it's like, you know, what do you choose to support? Do you want a really nice meal, or do you want like Subway twice a week? So people can choose what to do, how to spend their money. Yeah. But I think the dinner parties is like, that's like the best time to have with your friends and your people close to you, is like sharing drinks or like over food like that. When you go back to what is trust, those are the spaces where you actually trust the people showing up to be in your home. And that's the human connection that we all crave the most.
So it would be irresponsible of us not to recognize the difficulties that a lot of families are going through, and then just generally right now in society. So I'm wondering, how can hospitality businesses become more active voices for food security and fighting racism?
Ooh. Well, the fighting racism thing is obviously first thing on a lot of people's minds right now. It certainly is for myself as a Black person. And you know, our thing, like, and we've been having a lot of discussions at Blueprint about this for some time, kind of since the Me Too movement happened, and we felt that we were on our heels a little bit in terms of a response and what's the right thing to do. But when we step back and look at it, we say, you know, we do all of these things, and we're so equality driven and the rest of it, that the what we don't have is a program. And I don't want to say a program like some sort of like, hey, this is what we're going to do from corporate social responsibility standpoint, because that's bullshit, and that's what kind of everybody does, and it's an easy thing to do. But actually getting in and working with the right partners, especially again where race is concerned, and donating, fundraising, awareness raising, hosting seminars, those sorts of things. Yeah, and so because, and like I said, we've done all of these things. We support the LGBTQ community. We support the Indigenous community. We support, you know, up and coming artists of all shapes and sizes. But we haven't codified it, if you will. And so that's what we are going to do from a blueprint standpoint. In terms of the food security, that's a little out of my realm. I think Karri talked very eloquently about it earlier. But
you know, I got to say that when I worked in the nightlife industry, that was the moment where I was exposed to everything you could ever imagine. And you see people for who they are, you see what's amazing about them, you see that we all love the same things, and it just opens your eyes. And, you know, maybe some of the problem is that we're working these jobs where it's just a bunch of sameness. And working jobs like hospitality are good for us, and we need to cherish that and protect them. Any final words before we switch over to some Q&A?
I mean, I can speak a little bit to the food security, just that we are not paying, and this like ties into what you said, Nate, about we participate voluntarily without thinking about how, if we're not paying true cost, then there's an oppression somewhere. And until we realize how we're part of that and we're oppressed, even as a privileged white person, like until I will acknowledge and see where I'm participating in it, that I'm in it, and how am I going to see that? It's like, you know, how do you tell fish that the water's there? Like with these invisible systems, we have to take responsibility for it. And in the food systems, that's everywhere. The middlemen, like right now, we're getting crucified with food costs because the middleman supply and demand, and like beef just went through the roof. Why? The rancher's not getting more. And it's just a like supply and demand, and in the stock market playing this game, and which is really who pays.
Yeah.
And we're starting to look at all of our, how do we still continue to do what we do without someone missing out? We just can't exist like this anymore. And we're starting to map it out. We're like, wow, there's a lot of places where true cost is not coming forth. And so how can we bring light to that? And how can we actually start to model our menus and our food dishes around a commitment to that? Yeah. And so we're trying to figure out, is that even possible to exist? It has to be, or it has to be. We have to make that work.
So we have a question here that runs along these lines about the value creation, but also the value extraction. What was the moment, or how has this moment helped you focus in on what really makes your experience special, or what really underpins your culture? Do you feel you're able to reimagine your offer without losing your essence? So again, it's going back to what is the ethos and what it is that you're creating, but also taking in many ways. Nate, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to what I said, it's about being more vocal about the things and the organizations and the people and communities that we do support, so that when somebody looks at a blueprint or looks at one of the venues that we operate or one of the festivals that we produce, that they know going in what our values are and who we are and who we stand with, that sort of thing. And I think just like communicating it so that there's no question, which I feel that in general, a lot of companies shy away from. I know people personally shy away from that sort of thing, but this isn't the time to do that. I think between COVID and now what's going on currently in the US, these are they're world-changing events. Like, we are all witnessing history right now. And if you're foolish if you're not taking this time, or if this hasn't made you reflect on how you do everything that you do and the people that you do support. It was painful beyond words to I'm getting emotional, but to lay off 600 people like we had to do. We had to lay off 96% of our staff, and that was just in BC. We also have about 120 staff in Alberta. It was brutal. So right there, we realized how, not like we didn't before, but how valuable each and every person that works for us is, and how valuable our guests are, and why they're coming to us in the first place. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say except if you're not doing that, you're lost.
So, Kate, you do a lot of writing about obviously the food and spirits world, and there's been a resurgence of the little micro bar, of like this pub experience. This is like where the trend is going. What do you think that those spaces have the ability to become in this new world where we are seeking connection, we want safety, but so much of it's like personal?
Do you mean like a small bar or?
Yeah, the really micro bars, right? Which have really popped back up the last couple of years.
It's hard to predict because no one knows the future of bars. Without food to run, without food, a lot of these places aren't going to be opening for a long time, and it depends if everyone is safe all summer. So the future of bars is really up in the air. It also depends, if no one's safe all summer, then we're asking bars to stay open with minimal income through to the fall. So it's hard to predict what this is going to look like, but you are seeing a lot of people put a focus on locality, support their neighborhood. So I hope that continues.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you all three. It's been wonderful having this conversation. I think it's really important for everybody on this call to really see what the effects of this has been and what it's going to take to get us to a point of recovery and resiliency. So thank you so much. We'll be sending an email afterwards, everybody, with some links, providing some information based off what we talked about here. Again, thank you so much, and have yourself a wonderful weekend, and good luck with the recovery of each of your businesses and your writing as well. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.